Holy comic book remorse, Batman. This is James Minhunter Comics, and today we're talking about the books we can't believe we let go. Some of these stories are like 30 years old, and it still haunts us to this day. And I reached out to you, the fan base, to see your personal stories. So I've got a list here. I really appreciate you commenting. If you missed it, comment down below a book that you really miss, man. I'm going to start us off. It is a book and a story I've talked about on this channel before, but it's the first appearance of Poison Ivy. I got it for dirt cheap in like 2017, and I sold it in 2018/19 for less than I even bought it for. Now, this book was like a 9.4, ridiculously high grade quality. Well, if you remember, that book was under the radar for so long. So during the COVID peak, and even still now, I just had to sit there and watch as that book skyrocketed. We're talking about like tripling, quadrupling, even 10 times the amount of money that I should have gotten for it. I have more than a few examples of books that I lost hundreds of dollars on, but that is one of the ones I lost thousands on. So I thought that was a good entry to kick us off here. Tiny Dan says Thundercats #1, the Star comic book. It was a double cover, and that he still can't believe it. It haunts him to this day. Yeah, double covers, I mean, I've still never found one in the wild, so they're rare. I get it. Anthony Parisi says, hey, classic here, ASM 300. Carlos Sanchez, who's actually a regular to the channel, says Amazing Spider-Man 23. Got it for nothing and basically traded it for nothing. Would like to own again. Carlos, since you're at pretty much every single one of my claim sales, next time I find an ASM 23, I hope you get first claim on it. Dirt Cobain says, I had a gold Venom #1. It was a CGC 9.4. That gold is really tough to find. I still see that being sold for some whoppers of prices. I bet that would be a sad one to lose. Tim West said, my entire Death and Reign of Superman collection. The entire Nightfall series. Vengeance of Bane #1. I could go on, but it's too depressing. I had to move out of state and couldn't take it with me. When I had to sell off a ton of books in 2018 and 19. I was like badly in debt. I was being paid hardly nothing. And I had to let go of a lot of stuff. So I was in the same boat. Mark SE says, Jimmy Olsen, first Dark Side. Sold my full collection over 10 years ago. That's a tough book to go. I will say the value on that book still surprises me, how affordable it is. But yeah, seeing that go bye-bye would definitely hurt. JM says, at a comic convention, I traded an ASM 252 8.0 for a higher grade New Teen Titans 1. Looking at it now, I feel regret for trading it away. I don't feel the books are even close. I don't know. New Teen Titans 1 is actually very underrated, and ASM 252, as amazing as it is, very overrated, but I understand it. Marvel Decoded says Marvel Spotlight 2, second Werewolf by Night. Sold it during WandaVision, but I wish I had it back. Yeah, I get it. At least you timed it right. You timed it when the MCU was doing its thing, but sucks to see it go. Batman Boy says, I've never sold because I'm 12, but I would never sell any Injustice comics or Omnibus. Injustice is my favorite comic book story. Yeah, when I did my top 10 Justice League stories, even though it's an Elseworlds tale, I think I put Injustice as #1. If it wasn't #1, it was like #2. I love Injustice. Bing, bing, bing. There it is right there. With a bookmark in it. I read that thing a lot. Felix Maldonado says Incredible Hulk 102. Ooh, that's a tough one, because I feel like that is not a book you see too much. Joshua Alvey says, New Mutants 98, bought it off the rack new, had to sell it. Yikes. Hey man, what's a 9.8 do these days? What's that, $1,500 or something crazy? Leonard Pace says, easy. I sold bunches of my Amazing Spider-Man early issues, pre-129, to pay for a bill. I was thinking since they were not quite valuable back then, I could pick them up later on while they were still cheap. But obviously, we know what happened there. Joshua Alvey comes in again and says, also, Infinity Gauntlet bought new off the rack. Could keep going. Yep, I get it. Roy Watson says, I had a Hulk 181 at a 7.5 that I ended up letting go because I had struggles with money. A lot of the worst tales here are when people's backs are backed into a corner and you have to sell. All my worst stories are when I was in financial trouble, so I understand. I regret selling the book, but it was almost like I had to. Indie Key Comics says The Last of Us 1. You don't see that too much. I am an owner of a 9.8. I wish I owned the full miniseries, but yeah, that is a book I could never let go. There's very few books I could never let go. That is one of them. I am probably the biggest Last of Us fan out there. Check Meow Rays says, back in the 90s, I was just out of college and short on cash. In order to keep getting new comics, I would bring issues that had gone up a little in value back to my LCS for a trade-in of 50% FMV. So I'm sure he let go of some stuff. Semperfi New York says, once again, here we go, New Mutants 98, CGC 98 newsstand. Ooh. Yeah, that's really hard to get back. I mean, I know that book's come down a lot, but the Newsies? 90s newsstands, man, that's tough. Mikey Maz, all my early World's Finest books that I bought from my LCS when I was in grade school with a paper route and gift money. I had some early ones too. I wish I had them all back. Yeah, man, that's like that personal collection stuff. I mean, I still have my junker copies of books that I just can't let go. I've found those books in much higher grade 100 times over in my hunting, but there's something special about the ones that I actually had as a kid. Derek says, when me and my wife were buying our first house, I had to sell my Hulk 181 and Giant Size X-Men #1. Still hurts. Hey, but look, man, priorities, you got a house. But yeah, it's tough to get those back. Lady Pop Hunter said, I asked my husband because I'm new to collecting, but I'm not a person that gets rid of anything. So here's his response. Daredevil 1. Yikes. Yeah, I got rid of a Daredevil 1 too. It was a good trade, but yes, I miss it. Nick Nax Comics says, I downsized 6 years ago and there was a ton of mid-grade silver Marvel that I let go for way too little. If I had to pick one, ASM 17, Second Green Goblin. Especially letting Amazing Spider-Man go in general, I feel like is particularly harsh. Retromania says, my entire Flash run, I had 70% of the original run, had many of the keys. Wow. Yeah, that's pretty impressive to get. I know what it's like to try to chase down entire collections, and then having to get rid of them is crazy. What's on Ethesium Ghulam's mind says, my Amazing Spider-Man #1 Golden Record reprint. That's an expensive book. Just because it's a reprint, I think that's, what, 66, 67? There's value there. Watch out for the Fantastic Four #1 Golden Record. Some value there, too. Rob says, I actually have sold a lot of Silver Age, mainly Spider-Man, Batman, and X-Men. Many of those I got just before the MCU made the market. I bet medical emergencies, that would do it, man. Anything financial backs you in and you got to sell. It sucks. Will Cat says, my Silver Age CGC Marvel keys. Just to have had the opportunity to sell during the price explosion. Hulk 1, Strange Tales 110, Journey and Mystery 83. Okay, big boys here. Really big boys. He let go of some stuff. Dale said, I've held on to all of my books. One regret I have was not purchasing a Batman 1 Raw. It was about $4,045, and 15 years ago it was selling for $11,000, which I thought was too much. What's that now? $250,000? Something like that. Michael says, my 9.2, yeah, wow. Giant Size X-Men #1, which was unpressed, sold it 15 years ago. Must have been the early days of CGC. And nobody was pressing or cleaning back then. Mr. Charles says, in 94, I had a religious breakdown, and I burned my Spawn 1, signed by the Todd Father, on the grill of my parents' barbecue. I guess you can say I sold it to God. He wasn't accepting any returns. That's a unique one, Mr. Charles. Thank you. Splink Production says, sadly, I sold a near mint Amazing Spider-Man 4 in the 80s. Dude, that first Sandman and Betty Brant, what's the value on that? I think it's nuts. Frank says, I had an ASM 300 when it came out, and I got rid of it when I quit collecting in the late 90s. I started collecting again maybe 10 years ago. Now I wish I had kept this book. Sure. I imagine a lot of people have specifically ASM 300 regret. Last one I'm going to give you was Rue New says, my regret was I lost my 90s collection of Marvel vs. DC in a house fire. Very unique, very unfortunate response there. I know a lot of people that have lost to financials, house floods, house fires, moms throwing stuff out. Everybody's got a unique story. It's such a shame, man. You look forward, not back. Really, quite honestly. I mean, the stuff I've lost, it's been crazy. And some of it I haven't even regained back. But I'm out there hunting all the time, doing this for a full-time job. I'm constantly finding books. And I find new awesome stuff all the time. Does it replace that hole in your heart for those books? Not quite, but you do the best you can. This is why you keep on hunting, my friends. I'll see you at the next video.